As Jesus and his disciples were making their way from town to town, they stumbled upon a small village where they were invited to stay with Martha and her sister Mary. While Mary sat with Jesus listening to his stories and soaking in his presence, Martha busied herself with anxious preparation as resentment slowly started to build inside her heart. She was doing everything and Mary was doing nothing. She was preparing the home while Mary sat with Jesus. I can just picture Martha muttering under her breath in disbelief that her sister was not helping. After all the hard work, Martha built up the courage to call out Mary, asking Jesus to do something. Frustrated, Martha bursts out a demand for Jesus to do what she wants him to do, and the tension in the room begins to build. Would Jesus instruct Mary to go to the kitchen and help, or would he scold Martha for the outburst? No. Instead, Jesus guides Martha to see the truth of the reality that in all of her worried striving and frantic busyness, she has missed what is most important, and that is surrendering to the love and presence of Jesus Christ. Sometimes we feel like we're either Mary or Martha, depending on our personality. This story is not about who you identify with. It's about two paths on a journey to become more like Christ. One path is doing your best to make Jesus feel at home, and the other path is finding your home in Jesus' presence. I think both paths are necessary, but one is better than the other. Like Martha, we try to impress the Lord with all the things we are doing for him, only to find out for ourselves that we get frustrated, resentful, and anxious. To choose what is better is to choose to stop striving and to surrender to his love. Welcome to week 3. This week, we will take the time to discuss and practice what it is like for us to surrender to God and pay attention to how he presently works in our lives. This week, we will start to notice that you are not simply a passive observer of your faith, but you have an active role to play in your faith formation. As we prepare to build our house on the rock, it is important to remember that it is easy to get worked up about the building process that we forget why we are building it in the first place. Jesus invites us to let go of control, stop striving, and give up our agenda. In their place, he offers rest, fulfillment, and the opportunity to discover ourselves in him. When we put ourselves at the feet of Jesus, we find what we've been striving for all along. When you surrender yourself to the presence of God, his love transforms you. This week, we will do our best to establish our lives at the feet of Jesus and surrender to God as we join with him to build our home on the rock.
Pause and be still for a moment. Breathe deeply for a few breaths. Open your hands palm up as if to let go of the things you have been clinging to so tightly. Pray and offer to God the things in your life that you need to let go of controlling. Now receive the gift of His presence. Pray about what it would mean to let Christ lead your life. Luke chapter 6, verses 46 through 49. Why are you so polite with me, always saying yes, sir, and that's right, sir, but never doing a thing I tell you? These words I speak to you are not mere additions to your life, homeowner improvements to your standard of living. They are foundation words, words to build a life on. If you work the words into your life, you are like a smart carpenter who dug deep and laid the foundation of his house on bedrock. When the river burst its banks and crashed against the house, nothing could shake it. It was built to last. But if you just use my words in Bible studies and don't work them into your life, you are like a dumb carpenter who built a house but skipped the foundation. When the swollen river came crashing in, it collapsed like a house of cards. It was a total loss. John chapter 3, verses 27 through 30. To this John replied, "A person can only receive what is given to them from heaven. You yourselves can testify that I said, 'I am not the Messiah, but am sent ahead of him.' The bride belongs to the bridegroom. The friend who attends the bridegroom waits and listens for him, and is full of joy when he hears the bridegroom's voice. That joy is mine, and it is now complete. He must become greater. I must become less."
At my previous job, I was a superintendent for residential home building. My job was to oversee the building process for one of our building sites. And at the first site, everything ran smoothly. The excavation, the forming, the pouring of the foundations, it seemed so easy, so straightforward. But at the second site, we started the same process. Everything was going the same way, but this time we ran into a pretty big problem. At the first site, we had been building on a solid ground made of clay, but at the second site, it was a little bit different. The problem was that there was a bunch more sand within the soil at the new site, and this made the process of building so much more difficult. The excavator explained to me that since the ground and the soil had a lot more sand in it, it would be harder to dig and it would be harder to pour the foundation within that area, because over time it might actually ruin the integrity of the house and the strength that it is sitting on. And that's a lot like our own faith, the foundation of our faith. What do we build our life on? Am I building my life on a firm foundation of truth, strength, or confidence in Jesus? Or am I attempting to build it on a foundation other than Jesus? Maybe my own strength? Building your home on a solid foundation definitely takes participation from you in what Christ is doing in your life. However, this does not mean trying harder to improve yourself by sheer willpower. Notice, John the Baptist does not say, I must become greater so that Jesus can become greater. But it's usually how we think about our faith. Instead, he says, I must become less. The difficult reality is that we must die to ourselves in order to be born again in Christ. It feels easier to try and attain the love of God by being a good person and making a good life for ourselves. But the solid foundation isn't our life. It is a life that we are building on Jesus Christ alone. And in order to have more of God, we need less of ourselves.